You hear me, guys?
Yep, we can hear
Can hear you, Billy.
Good to see you all. You're well?
Fine, thank you.
Not too bad.
Being better.
Yeah, keeps had better days.
That's it. No one else can ask me that this now today.
Right, it looks like Facebook's playing up tonight. I don't know why, but we got it on Twitter, I think. I think we're also live on YouTube with a bit of luck as well. Double check. Yep. Not sure why Facebook's playing up, but it is. Right, let me tweet this out and then I'll be with you guys. Give me 2 seconds. Well, welcome to the D&K Reposs Non League show, and we're here for the next hour. Unfortunately, for people trying to watch on Facebook, it's gone down, so we'll try and get you over to Twitter and also onto the YouTube channel at the same time. But of course, joining me as usual, top left-hand corner for me, of course, is Keith. And Keith, how are you, mate? And how's the knee?
Yeah, I'm all right, Dave. Knee's a bit sore, mate, but gonna have to get on with that, unfortunately. Least of my worries.
We might go into that a bit later, but
glad you can laugh over it. All right, Bill.
Well, of course, down in the bottom left-hand corner.
Can we not mention that, please?
What's that? No, right, we won't mention it. We won't.
Can we not mention bottom? Can you just say down the end there?
All right, down the end there. Yeah, down the end in the bottom right-hand corner. he's of course chairman of Hastings in Billy, and welcome, Billy. Nice to have you back on, mate.
Good to be back, lads. I'm looking forward to it.
And of course, underneath Keith, he's of course the chairman of Chesham. Of course, Peter Brown. Welcome back, Peter.
Welcome. Good evening to you all. Actually, I'm above Billy on my screen, so you're below me, Keith.
not many people are above Billy.
Not quite. There you go.
Right, can we finish this now? Is the show done?
How's the knee?
Yeah, it's about as good as these last 2 minutes.
I mean, one of the things, guys, we're going to try and talk to. I mean, we'll keep away from bottoms and stuff like that. But what we're trying to talk about is literally around. There's been a lot of sort of traffic, I suppose, social media wise, especially over the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and it is something that sort of goes on for almost every season. It is sort of like late call-offs, postponements, etc., etc. I mean, what is everybody's feelings about it? Because I know like Ali, who does the show, steps in for Keith here and there, as well as had her say about it, and basically said she didn't want to come on tonight because she might get the sack if she comes on tonight. So she said she's going to keep away from it. But in all fairness, I mean, these trips. I mean, I saw teams.
You've gone frozen now.
He's froze, Dave.
Yeah, you're frozen, Dave. Don't put a penny in the meter.
Late kickoffs.
Right, try again. You froze, Dave.
Did I? Oh, okay, mate. So I'm saying, literally around these, literally around the late postponements and everything. I mean, what is everybody's feelings around it?
Well, late postponements?
Yeah, because I mean, literally, Ali and Ali's spoken about it. A load of other people have spoken about it as well. Going. Yeah. Especially when you've got these long journeys and you've got really long journeys, and then all of a sudden you're ending up sort of getting to the ground and finding out the game's been called off, and you may have had sort of like a 2-hour sort of journey. I mean, is there how do you feel about it, and how can sort of leagues and teams put that correct?
Pete, up to you. You can go first if you want.
I think the league can put it quite correctly. It's not so much the league. I think the FA can bring it correctly, and in the first place, insist that these clubs that spend massive amounts on players actually spend massive amount and put a decent drainage system in on their pitches. 10 years ago, we spent £12,500 plus that putting the drainage system in, and we've had one game called off since through weather. A lot of clubs we go to, their pitches are built on, they call them floodplains, but they've got no other ways of getting out with it. We had 3 trips to Tiverton one year, cancelled 2 of them late, cost us coach fares for 2 of them. The first one we were let off, second one we paid half, the third one we paid a full fare for, and we got no game for it because their pitch is notoriously bad in the wet months because they don't do it. Farnborough, their game was called off. We actually arrived at Farnborough, and as soon as you walked into the ground, you went, well, there's no way this pitch is playable. Why don't the referees get in there earlier? You know, they get their half fees for it. Why don't they get there earlier to do it? Because it just completely destroys everything. And yet we had Storm Eunice come through our grounds last week and took down an overhead cable, blacked out all the turnstiles, safety lights, security lights, toilets, T-bar. So we called the gate. We went into electricians, 5 electricians. You're joking. I got calls all over the country. There's no way I'm going to get and see you in time. So we went to the league, called the game off. 40 minutes later, the Western's manager goes a bit ape, saying, you didn't make enough effort to call the game on, put the game on and everything like that. You know, he's 80 miles away trying to give a comment. And with them travelling that distance, you know, calling it off on the Friday night was the logical, sensible thing to do. Saturday morning then came. We then go into the clubhouse, well, not the clubhouse, into the main stand. There's no electrics in the main stand. There's the fuse board with a big black mark on it. So we phoned the league and said, we've got no power in the toilets, the change rooms. All right, fine, call the game off. But we didn't need to do that. We didn't need the adverse comments made by someone that didn't have the facts. If you're going to call a game off, it should be called off by 10 o'clock. But it's nice to say you've only got a 2-hour journey. You know, I wish it was 2 hours when you look at some of the mileages that we do to event. I mean, one of our games, we've got 2 fixtures where we travel over 200 miles.
Wow.
You know, this is the league needs reorganising properly and making it a lot more regional, but the FA don't listen to us. So I just think clubs should be made to invest into ground, you know, proper ground facilities with proper stuff, instead of spending fortunes on players and wages. Actually get a proper in system put in there so that the water can be drained off properly. It can be done, and it is known to be done, but it's always shortchanging it, and it's the people travelling that have to pay for it.
I concur on facilities. From our end, we don't have any games called off due to adverse weather. We're very fortunate here. Our pitch ain't as good as it used to be as such, but it's still an adequate level to the fact that we can get games on even in obviously Storm Eunice. We had our game on, the wind didn't affect that. And then a couple of weeks before, we had dreadful weather down here. And we managed to get the game on. Took a lot of volunteers close to kickoff, I may add, Pete. So like a travelling team, it could have still been called off. But we persevered and made sure the game was playable. I think on the flip side of that, I just want on the pitch on improving facilities. I agree. Look, I think people are very quick to bring in a player than they are to improve what they've got around them. So, for example, infrastructure is everything. As everyone knows, we've been trying to bloody move from here for years. Hopefully we'll have some news on that soon. But we still have to spend thousands and more thousands to make sure our facility, our stadium is what it needs to be for people to visit. It's 100 years plus old now. So you can imagine there's lots of things that we have to do. But if people didn't spend some of the ridiculous money that they are on players, and I'm sure people will try and use Hastings as one of those, which I can find throw facts that's not true. But I think ultimately you'll be right. I think there'd be less games called off. But on the flip side of that, I look at it a little bit like this: if games are called off that early, which I mean, it would stop the pointless travel. But if they were, is that people not trying their hardest to get a game on, if you know what I mean? So, for example, I'm sure you would, Pete, I'm sure, and we do here, if it's in the balance, we'll try and make sure it happens rather than, well, just call it off sort of thing. So I find that one a really tricky one because from my end, I just want to get every game on. Like we've got the 23s on tonight and like, you know, the pitch ain't great, but it's got to be played. And, but I think in a lot of instances, I think a lot of people would use that to their advantage and call games off. And I think, and I think that would affect the competition massively because I think people will pick and choose when they can play teams, and And when someone's in form, it's a lot easier to not want to play them, and your pitch not be ready.
Yeah.
And it is when the team are out of form coming down to play you, for sure.
Well, that's right. You know, Billy, if you have a game at home on a Saturday, you'll get a crowd 600-700. You have a game midweek, if you get 350, you're damn lucky. And everything then serrates down. Your program sales, your just food sales, your drink and everything just disappears. So
Yeah,
we always want a Saturday game. Saturday is so important to the finances of the club, and everyone resolves their weekend around it. They don't on a Tuesday night.
Definitely, with us, like with our attendances this year, have been incredible, and it finances us to be able to do what we do. Like we run based on what we've got in the bank, and if we didn't get those crowds, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing. But I think my thing is a little bit. I understand the feeling of people being. I'm sure Keith is a manager, like turning up somewhere in a game and getting called off. It's dreadful, and it is frustrating. But how can we change that without the referees turning up an hour before?
Yeah, quite.
How can we?
I think looking at it though, Bill, and I pick up on a couple of all your points. If you think your game's in danger early, you can get a local referee in, can't you?
Yep.
So you would do that anyway. If you've got any doubt, you get a local referee in. So the referee turning up an hour earlier isn't going to make any difference. You know, we've had 3 games this year, well, this side of this year, on our pitch that's basically ruined our pitch. You know, we played Corinthian, where it just Corinthian, yourself, Bill, at Hastings. I don't know if you come down to our game and got on. And then Ashford last week, where we all worked our absolute granny off to get the pitch into some sort of decent condition before the game. And then at 1 o'clock, the heavens just absolute opened on all 3 games. And then, Ashford and Corinthian, they didn't stop through the game. So, you struggle like that. So, as you said, if we would have called the game off at 10 o'clock, a referee would have walked in and just laughed at us because there was no way on the planet the game was off. Yeah. We've gone to a ground that we've got there and we've walked on the pitch and gone, how the hell are we playing here this year? But we played on it. I think most clubs don't want to call games off. I know you've got to look at, you said we've had some really weird weather in the last month or so where it's been more wet, and obviously the storms where you can't do much about it. Just going on to people's facilities, I will sort of agree that I think, I've always had a decent pitch everywhere I played at East, Thamesmead, and obviously, Whitstable, we're looking to change things. But and I've always said I think clubs need to spend more on pitches. But I think I think a lot of clubs' pitches are 10 times better overall as a league than what they were. So they have invested a lot in that. To invest in 12, 15 grand on drainage is a lot of money, a lot of upheaval, and a lot of clubs, I can only talk about ours, are looking at future like 3G next year, where they can't, they need every penny they can get to do that. And I know you're saying about going to Farnborough. I've been to Farnborough, and I'll be absolutely amazed if that hasn't got one of the best drainages around. When you walk in the stadium, it's like walking into Millwall. It's beautiful. Yeah. You look at pitches. Where do you go? Do you then start looking at changing rooms as well? Because I've gone into places where the changing rooms are shocking. We haven't got the best. Bill Woods is old. They're old. Well, I've been in the home and away one. They change every year. But as you said, when you're doing big plans and you've got old buildings, what do you do? There is only a certain amount. And then a lot of clubs will also go, and you'll know this, Bill, going into looking at your new ground. And Peter, we're playing the ground grading at some grounds are ridiculous what they're asking you to spend to get your ground up to that level. And every club's done that and spent a fortune as well. And, I know there's Football Foundation grants, but that's not giving you the whole money. No. Clubs need a lot more investment from powers, above to do that. And, and instead of, the big clubs getting all that money or investing in other areas, which Dave knows I go nuts about, give it to clubs like ours that can maybe, do that towards the ground raiding and not have to, I know there's funding, but you still got to find that money as well. And, I think you're opening can of worms with that, but the pitches, I will say overall, apart from, have been better, and especially this year. Bill, your pitches, I haven't been on it since we come early, but it was still lovely. It's one of the better ones. But, with COVID over the last 2 years, I think pitches have improved massively as well.
Yeah, they've had that time off, haven't they? They've had a bit of time off to be able to be better, to the ground to be better. But I think you're right, Keith, in the sense of it does open up a can of worms, because ultimately funding is everything, because a lot of clubs literally are ran by people just holding it together by committees. Not everyone's in a fortunate position where there's benefactors or new owners coming into some clubs and throwing around ridiculous amounts of money, which we've seen recently. Or some clubs having really good support and be able to operate as a business. Like, we're fortunate. I don't for 1 minute look at Hastings' situation that we're in and take it for granted. We're fortunate that we have the town behind us and turning up and watching us, because if they weren't, we wouldn't have the money to be able to invest in the things that we want to invest in. Now, a lot of clubs don't have that. And if you're getting gates of 90, 100, 150 people, which some are, at best, some of them as well, it is hard, because how do you pay the budget, whatever your budget is on just that gate? Obviously, you got your sponsors to take into consideration. But then if we're talking about facilities upgrading, which by the way, I think they can be, but how do you finance it? So
it's a big catch-22. Be like you said, it's like where we are at the moment, which we're in obviously a dire place in the league. And if you look, we like yourself, Bill, I know our committee are brilliant, and they're self-funded by the town and the money that comes through the gate. But there's some big hitters in our league, and if it meant us trying to spend 12, 13 grand more on a drainage on the pitch, or trying to give it the budget to stay in the league, they've got to try and stay in the league, because overall it's worth more than it's a big merry-go-round. All the teams around you in the league are spending big, and we're not spending big, but you've got to spend enough to try and give yourself a chance. So I do think maybe that might settle down. I think after next year, I think the COVID thing has opened up a bigger, you could say, a chest of money for a lot of clubs that haven't had to pay players for a couple of years, and had a lot of grants money-wise as well through COVID. I think that might start slowing down a little bit.
No, I agree.
Oh, I hope it does, because it just ruins it. But you can get 70% grants towards the 12,000 quid, and that's a big chunk towards it. You just got to find 30%. And last year, with all the COVID money was there, why didn't people invest that into their things? No, they kept it stored up and threw the money at players this year.
Short term, Peter. A lot of people don't think long term, do they? They think very short term. Excuse me, gents. Like, they think short term in the sense that if the money's there, then and how can we spend it? And they think on success. Now, we all know we're all in football because we want success. We're not in football because we want to sit around and wait and drive around on a Saturday and Tuesday just to get along. So I understand why people do that, but at the same time, I think the more that these football clubs are treated as businesses, which they're all small businesses now, then things will get better. But I think always that balancing act of where you're going to spend your money is always going to be there, especially if you're ambitious. Or if you're say, for example, you're in a relegation battle and you've got to get out and you've got a bit of money there to spend, you're probably going to bring in 2 or 3 players before improving your pitch in the summer.
Just ask both of you, because obviously we mentioned, how many games have you had postponed this year?
We've had 3 away games and 1 home game. Storm Eunice. It was a good job Eunice came along, because they had monsoon on the Saturday after the Friday, wiped the pitch out. Started raining at 11. By 1 o'clock, the pitch was, there were ducks playing on it. There really were ducks on it. Nothing would have coped with that. The whole town was flooded, and the water couldn't get out of the ground because it was blocked up in the town. So, but we've had 69 matches on our pitch so far this season. And we've still got grass on it. We've had brilliant groundsman.
Yeah, we've had no cancellations due to weather. So
is that away as well?
What's that?
Is that away as well?
Away as well, yeah. We've had nothing, which is great for us in that sense. And I think we've probably been a bit lucky. That's why I may be coming at it from a different angle, because the only postponement, I've had 2 postponements since being at this club, and one was a Boxing Day away game, and one was when we had Herne Bay come down here for a midweek game. No, for a Friday night game, actually, it was. And the game got called off 45 minutes before kickoff due to one area of the pitch being flooded when it was final day. So you can imagine what Ben Smith was like, and they weren't happy. They weren't happy. But like, our pitch has had a fair usage this year with training and games. I think it's on its 94th use tonight. So it's been absolutely hammered. But Simon's done a great job keeping it the way it is, and it's playable. But I don't know. I don't know. I think with postponements, I'm kind of I'm one, if it's 50-50, try to get it on rather than get it off.
I think it's communication, isn't it? Like we've not had a game called off as well. So I would basically say it might be that a lot of clubs have done well with their pitches as well. But on the other side of it, I think the going, just the thing between clubs, unless you don't get on with a club, is that, you know what time they're going to travel. You ask, you keep them updated in the morning or even the night before if you think it's dodgy. If you know a team's leaving at 10 o'clock in the morning, then you've got to do a 9 o'clock pitch inspection. And if it passes it, you say to them, look, it's passed. There's nothing more we can do about it. It's not your fault if it gets called off. And I think that it's the one, if they don't have it done, then that's, I think if a team doesn't do a pitch inspection, and then you turn up and it's off, and when they know it's dodgy, then I think they should pay you expenses.
Yeah, so do I. We knew that Farnborough was that, and all you had to do was look at the local weather forecast for Farnborough. No, weather forecasts now are incredibly accurate. I get a message on my phone now, it's going to rain at my house at 10:22, and it will rain for 29 minutes. So it's coming, and you can say, well, when we got to Farnborough, there was a monsoon on the way down there. We thought, well, we ain't going to be playing. And as soon as you walked in the ground, the referee's inspecting, you just went, well, let's go and get in our cars.
But that was going to happen. I mean, that was going to be my next question to you guys, was the fact that, with some of these games, if you're, how far could the league not put in something, or leagues or FA, whatever, put in some rule that says if you're travelling and it's over this amount of miles or this amount of time, the decision's got to be made by this time, because as you said, like the weather forecasts are quite accurate now. And I did see some of them posted, especially the ones that were going to Kings Lynn and places like that they were posting there, and they were saying like, surely they would have looked at the weather and seen that at 1 o'clock it was going to absolutely, the heavens were going to open and the pitch was going to get flooded, to say, well, look, the pitch is not going to survive that downpour, so we're going to call the game off. Especially I think was it Bromley or somebody like that went there, or whoever it was who went there, and it was like a fair old journey. But surely there's got to be common sense brought into it as well, because now those teams that you look at Barking when they went to Dereham, they've now got to go to Dereham on a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily going to be a great trip. So should the leagues put something in like that to say, well, look, you need to keep.
I think they do, Dave. But then, like I said, it goes the other way. I think Dover the other week, I see the chairman going mad that the referee called his game off early at home because of that reason. Yeah. So sometimes you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's no one wants to turn up and have the game called off. And I'm definitely, there is something in place that you've got to tell teams in advance. It's just the decent common thing to do.
You travel to down to Plymouth on a Saturday, and the pitch is playable in the morning, but they know that there's a monsoon coming, and you get there 240 miles late and they say, oh, sorry, lads, the game's off. And you're thinking, what? And going down there midweek. And it has happened to clubs. They've gone down there in midweek. You just think, oh, this is not on. I was just glad that we had monsoon came in on the Saturday, but the game was already called off anyhow, because I'd have hated Weston-super-Mare to be coming towards the ground and we'd have been phoning on the coach at 12 o'clock saying, sorry, lads, the pitch is absolutely, ducks are floating around on it, game's off. So at least we saved them the expense of a coach fare, because it's damned expensive coach travel now.
No, it is. And like Pete, actually, that just made me something pop into my brain. So with the men and the women's team, we treat equally when it comes to travel and everything, right? So we pay the travel that we pay for the men, we pay for the women, and it is expensive. Like it's costing us, if they're both away from home a weekend, it's over £1,000 every weekend we're spending on travel alone. That's just getting them there and back. And we had a couple of games with the women last year where they were traveling to places, and you get a phone call when you're 20 minutes away from the ground saying, the pitch is waterlogged. You think, like, come on, like, it is communication. It does come back to that. But when you're spending the amount of money you are on travel, it can be a bit of a bugbear. But I also look at it a little bit. I don't know when you said about the whole travelling on Tuesday night thing. That one I don't worry about too much, because if for example, my players are are meant to be playing for our football club. I don't care if they've got to be ready, whether it's a Saturday or Tuesday. They're still getting paid. So I don't care on that one. If it gets cancelled on Saturday, we have to play on the Tuesday, then they better still be up for it on the Tuesday. And thankfully down here they are.
Well, they are at our place, but it's just other clubs do struggle with that.
Oh, they do. You're right.
You know, you get a last minute call off and then they put it on for a Tuesday and they're saying, sorry, you know,
Can't raise
I've got a work commitment until 3 o'clock every day. There's no way I can get to you at 1 o'clock to go 240 miles down the M4, the M5 and everything else that goes with it. It's a difficult one to do. Yeah. If the league were to make it a lot more regionalised, it would be easier. I mean, we're based, you know.
But you are on that border though, isn't it?
We're on that. We're the last train station out of London. Right, we're the last train station on the underground out of London, and yet we go down to Plymouth.
Yeah, you're the same as Met Police, Hayes and Yedding, Farnborough, and you. Funny though, isn't it? You're all in the top five.
Hendon as well.
Funny though, you're all in the top five, aren't you?
No, Hendon's not in the top five.
No, the four I've mentioned.
Yeah.
But not doing too bad for them travelling 240 miles.
It's just that you have to look at I don't know what you spend on coach fares and fuel, but ours will be over 12 grand this year. We had the show on that with Hendon and about where you are and we agree it's madness. There must be some great team bonding for the four of your clubs because obviously it's working.
But I mean,
players and the managers are brilliant.
Would it not be a case though of a? I know it would be difficult. Don't get me wrong, but would it? You know, if say for instance, I don't know, Hastings were playing. I don't know, say, just using. I'm not sure where everybody is, so bear with me. But if Hastings had a game on, you know, on the Saturday, but then and it gets called off, and it's a fair old travel. It's your furthest travel, and now you've got to play that on a Tuesday night. Would it not be an idea then for the league to look at whoever you two are playing on the following Saturday or when you booked it in and put you on a Saturday rather than putting that game in for a Tuesday and then moving that game to a Tuesday that might be a lot closer?
Yeah. Well, the league did a wise thing this year. They left a free Saturday in March, but clubs haven't used it for league fixtures. They've used it for county cup matches. So there's a few clubs like us out there that can't play a league game on the Saturday because the club we could have played is actually playing a county cup match instead. And you're thinking it'll only work, Dave.
Leagues are going to go, well, what about clubs that ground share?
Yeah.
What are clubs that do this?
Ground share is difficult.
One other club will be more favourable than another. You can't have safe fallouts for every single aspect that might happen. And as I just said, you do know sometimes if your game's off, sometimes you've got to go on a Tuesday. It's no different than if you're meant to be playing someone that's still in the FA Trophy or FA Cup and you've got to go and play on a Tuesday night. So,
I'm not disputing that. I just think that the clubs that their pitches regularly fail should be given two. You play us twice and they've both been called off twice. Well, you lose home advantage and you come to our ground to get the game played.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think in our league, Dave, I know there was problems going back a couple of years at Brentwood, wasn't there, with their pitch and someone else, and they've made teams go and play at another ground.
Yeah.
So there is in that for that if the pitch is that bad or it's got called off quite a few times. I don't know if Whitton might have been saying that there are a few teams in the Easterman that have done that. Obviously, I'm not too sure about the Southern League if they would do that.
They haven't done it to my knowledge, and I think it'd be a good ruling to have.
It's interesting in what Peter and Nat was saying earlier on about different games. Like the dog nearly fell off the sofa. That's why I jumped. But in all fairness, if I was just watching the overlap on YouTube earlier on, and they were talking on there about people paying out loads and loads of money for players. But if you want to go and get the best manager out there, why are people not saying, well, look, he's the best manager for me, go and chuck the money at it and get it that way? What does that not then be the same sort of scenario for us when we turn around and say a little bit what you were saying earlier on, that, okay, chuck a load of money at going to buy all the top striker and all the rest of it. But why do clubs then not go out and get sort of like the pitch done and all the rest of it? I mean, the only club that comes to mind that's done that of recent that I know of is Waltham Abbey, where, the Waltham Abbey pitch, as Keith will tell you, and I don't know if Billy's ever been down there, was probably like Brighton Beach. You know, and it'd been like that for years and years and years. You'd get to this time of year and you'd never get a home game played, or very rare.
Mm.
You know, now their pitch is probably one of the best grass pitches there is in non-league football. You know, because the guy's gone out there and spent that money on, you know, on upgrading. You know, he's put in, you know, literally in pitch sprinklers, and they've got drainage underneath it, and the pitch still looks, well, it looks like 3G every time I go past it. You know, I drive past it, it looks like 3G. So why do you think that is, that these clubs don't do that?
Because it's not stipulated they have to, is it?
No, it's not. Well, there is a small stipulation that you know, it's a really open, wide bracket in it, that the pitch has got to be up to a certain standard. But Dave, as I just said to you, you know, I can only go on my own personal experience. I went to Chichester. Now, the last time I went to Chichester, we turned up exactly as you said. So it's a 2.5 hour journey. And I reckon half the ground was unplayable. They had drainage issues. It was like quicksand. The referee played the game because he went, look, you're here. We went there this year and they spent the money on their drainage and the pitch was fine. You know, they said they spent a lot. Anyone, I don't know, Bill, you've been to Three Bridges. Three Bridges notoriously had an absolute awful pitch. We went there Saturday. Listen, they spent a lot of money on their pitch. Untold, I think 160 tonne of top dressing they spent and done bits and bobs. And it was 10 times better than what it's been. You know, they've had loads of games. They had a game in it the night before. They were watering the pitch before the game. Listen, it wasn't Wembley. It wasn't like Bills. It was really good for them. And you sit there and went, you know what? They've had a go here. So I do think that there's a lot of clubs as well that really had a go.
I think in our league, definitely. I think with regards to Chichester, obviously they had that good FA Cup run, didn't they? And they've been out. I was chatting with their chairman on Saturday. We just went there this weekend. Horrible weather probably affected their pitch, but I remember their pitch before when it was a county pitch. It weren't nice at all. But they've spent their money wisely. I think they've used the FA Cup money. They're not any team that have made that money to the second round of the FA Cup normally would have gone and spent that on players to try and get out of the league. They don't seem to have done that there, and they've spent a little bit more around other things they can do. And I think they're actually going 3G over at Chichester to kind of help with their situation there, which I think would be great for them. With regards to, for example, Three Bridges, totally agree with that as well. And I think you're right in the sense that in our league, I think, Keith, there's been a few that have really tried to have a go. And I think the time of COVID has helped that and probably made people realise there's other things to do around rather than it's just about the players. Having that break where you didn't have to pay players or you weren't player-centric and you were club-centric again, and what have you got to do for your club, probably allow people to think a bit more outside the box and a bit more about what they can do. But we're back in the fast forward of madness, back in the season. Like we're 9 games to go in our league, and everyone it's all about the Saturday and who you got in your team and how you're going to win those 3 points. And I think sometimes it's nice to take a pause and have a think. Like, for example, we've already arranged our work for the summer. So I've not jinxed it. It's going to be after the playoff weekend. But we start the work that week on our pitch for the next year. But we can afford to do that. And my argument is, whilst we demand more from everyone, and we always do, how many can afford to do that?
Exactly. I mean, we've got it planned. Our pitch is closed on Monday, May the 8th. That's it. The contractors are in. It's going to cost us 10 grand that week with everything that needs to be done on it, with seeding, piling, you name it, it's going to be done on it. And there's going to be 160 tonne of soil and sand being put on the pitch and everything with seeds. And that pitch won't be touched. No one will get on that pitch then until middle of July at the earliest. So it's got 8 to 10 weeks of real good sunshine and work on it. So it does look like a velvet lawn when it gets to it. But there's a lot of clubs that don't do that. And just drives us insane. But then a couple of years' time, we'll have a new stadium, a new ground and everything. So it won't worry us because there'll be all FIFA Pro pitches. So life will be a lot easier and money will be a lot easier.
Just going back again and sticking up for the smaller, the littler clubs that Bill said that get 90, 100 through. You know, 10 grand's a lot of money. That sort of time as well. A lot of clubs have their cup finals on. to try and get some money in, you know, and you know, they have, you know, all the school finals or local Sunday finals, and they, you know, all your youth teams, a lot of clubs let play on the main pitch if that's part of it. So it is. I know it is difficult.
Well, that's right.
But I will say, like I said, it is tough for. I can only go on our league, and some of the grounds that had notoriously poor pitches, and I'm going to say Herne Bay, I'm going to say Cray Valley this year have been very, very good. Very good.
Keith, I think one of the poorest pitches has actually been an artificial pitch, a 3G pitch at Ashford.
Well, we know that.
It's absolutely awful.
Yeah, that's been there for years, though, isn't it? And obviously Whiteleaf before that. And then when you look at, you know, my kids played on an artificial pitch yesterday down our way, and it was we might as well played on concrete. But the you know, the good ones now, and I said which we're looking to get one. Seven Oaks is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
You know, there are some good ones. I've not been to Ramsgate yet, but I've heard it's very good. So. It's all over. And well, saying that, we played Ashford in the Kent Senior Cup, and the referee 10 minutes before the game was going to call it off for being waterlogged. They were there with a broom sweeping it off. So there you go.
Artificial's the way forward, but it's funding it. We've got one club that gets 110 spectators every week in there. Yeah, they spent all the money on an artificial pitch with a rich benefactor, and that's being used constantly by kids and everything, and they're getting an income from that now, which then subsidises their earnings so that they can do what they are. That's why when we go to our new stadium, there'll be two pitches there, you know, because it has to be.
Is it one of those things where they're supposed to be devil's advocate with these with the artificial pitches, because, you know, as you just said, some might only have 110 coming through the gate or whatever it might be, but if you can find someone to help you pay for that pitch, you then start getting a benefit from hiring out the pitch, which then means possibly you might get a better player through the gate, which then means you might start doing better with your results, which then driving. It's a bit of a devil's advocate, isn't it?
Yeah. But then you got Met Police that only get 150 in there, but then it's all subsidised by the Met Police itself. So all the policemen pay money in, and it goes into it, so they don't have to worry about the pitch maintenance or costs. It's just a matter of they do it for their own finances, then just paying players, and that's, you know, it's 25,000 a year minimum to spend on a pitch. Ours is costing us over 30,000 by the time we spent early on and the regular monthly stuff, but it's well worth it because we get a lot of use out of it.
Yeah,
it's grass.
3G with 3G pitches, I'm not a big fan of them at all, and I think I totally get the business side of them, because they're a money maker. You can section them off, and you can have loads of different local clubs use them or pay higher fees. You can have different local teams jump on it. You can have people, you know, even ground share if you need to. I think from my end of things, obviously getting into the Football League as it stands, and I reckon it probably will change, but as it stands, you still have to be grass. So you have the situation of Sutton where you do it, you do well, and then you've got to rip your income up to go up, which they had to do. I would love to stick. We're going to try and stick grass here and have a couple of 3Gs next to us, sort of thing, just because we want to try and stay with grass, because it's football. But it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got to work out what's financially feasible. And I think,
well, with us, Bill, like I said, the club are looking to do it because, you know, where we are, there's not many sort of training areas. That's just something we have to train in Faversham. We get half a pitch once a week. And it actually, you know, I am a massive grass fan, I always have been, but our pitch is sort of like discombobulated, it's rubbish. And like we've really tried to spend, and if they didn't do it, they'd have to spend a fortune on it next year. And they know that. But this 3G would actually make it like a community hub at the club in the town, where everyone comes every day of the week to it. And it's a big thing for a town as well. And I'm, you know, the finances will help. And then, you know, they'll start putting that back into the club and the youth. And to me, it's a no-brainer. And
I agree.
Touch wood, it happens.
I agree. We would, for example, if we were staying at the pilot field, if, for example, we didn't get the new ground, 100% I'd go 3G here, because you would have to. Like, you know, like regardless if I like it or not, we would have to. Same reason, Keith. Training facilities are non-existent in Hastings. There's not... Believe it or not, in a town this size, there's not one full-size 3G in the town anywhere.
Well, I think there's one at a school around the corner. Well, if I called it 3G, I'd be lying because we played in it. And you just, I think Herne Bay's got their one called the Hub, which is, but not in Whitstable, and there's just not enough. And I said this the other week, Dave, didn't I? When I went over and looked at the facilities that our youth teams use, you wouldn't want you'd struggle to walk your dog on it. It's awful, and you just want the counties and the FA just to come in and sort of start putting a few around. I thought that was what was meant to be happening, but you come a little bit further down into London, and you jump in. It's like next door, but one's got one. It's a joke. It's like being in with the Joneses. Oh, you ain't got a 3G. Have you on your pitch? Oh, you might as well go and play somewhere else then. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And that's what the one thing that shocked me. And obviously, I've gone round Hastings and the same. I've like, where do you train, on your ground? It's mad. And to be fair, what you're saying, Pete, is what we done at Thamesmead when there was lack of facilities there, and I was so much wanting a grass pitch. So where we had the main stadium, I was really involved in the planning and that. Well, there every day, as everyone knows, and we had the main pitch grass, and just the other side of the stadium, which you could go out onto as well, was 3G. And it works, and it still works there now really well with that.
Well, that's right. There's not much difference between a 3G or a FIFA Pro pitch than there is in a Desso pitch.
We actually took
serious consideration at our club now.
I mean, we took a youth team out to Holland, and then we took a team out there to a club out in Holland, and got to their ground, and they've actually got where their first team plays in the higher divisions in Holland, and they've got like a 3G pitch there. But then literally behind one of the back of the goals, you've got to stay on one side, little gate. You go through the little gate, and still actually inside the stadium is a full-size grass pitch as well. Literally connected to it. So they were there for both, both services. But Non-League Maps has just got in touch. He says, I do think that a fifth Step 3 league would help travellers. I think the country splits better into 5, with the likes of Hendon, Harrow, Hayes, Walton, Met Police, Lowestoft, Leiston, Royston, Biggleswade, Hitchin joining the Isthmian team, split into 2 divisions.
That's fine, but what happens if either one of them gets promoted or relegated? This is why we're in this situation, because it all fitted absolutely fine with only the odd 1 or 2 teams, Dave. Like I said, it's geographically, it's never going to work for some. The only thing you can look at, and we've said this, I know Cheshire won't come into it, but you've got Worthing, Lewis, Bognor. All them should be in the Southern League, and then your Met Police, your Hendons, your Harrows should be in the Eastern League. But again, that could all change. And sorry for them 3 clubs, Lewis and that.
We're only 15 miles from Harrow, 22 miles from Met Police. It's great having those fixtures, and then you've got all the others. I mean, if you was to run my car to every game away and hope every game away game, I'd put 4,000 miles on my clock this year, which is crazy. It's ludicrous. 4,000 miles to travel and watch your own team play football.
He's also come back.
Your expenses must be massive. Your club must be gutted.
It's horrendous.
I bet it's only 1,500, isn't it? You've got one of them milk float dodgy things.
That's the case. But I go on the coach anyhow, and that's the only way to do it.
He's also come back and said it does, however, make it more complicated with promotion to Step 2, as 5 leagues promoted to replace the 8 relegating teams involves PPG calculations or a super playoff, which people find confusing. This is one of the reasons that the FA has moved towards a perfect pyramid of 1, 2, 4, 8, 16.
That's right. And that had to happen.
Yeah. I can see what it is.
It could be that in a few years' time, it just all works out perfect that it will go in that, Dave. But you're always going to get 1 or 2 because some football clubs are doing better than others in that area, and it is what it is. When Billy goes up, obviously they're going to the Prem, then hopefully they're going to the Lister, and they mostly will. But there's going to be a little bit more travelling there. If they went up again, it'll be more travelling there. It's tough. It's part of it. It is part of it. When you go into the conference, they actually give you sponsorship money too as part of travelling. Yeah, so maybe you can look at that as well with the sponsor that the leagues get.
We've already mentioned, or non-league match yourself, Keith, and mentioned teams from the Isthmian leagues, and he's mentioned teams from the Southern leagues. So why is it not the other way around then? Why are the likes of Worthing Lewis not over in the Southern League and guys in the Southern League not into this league? What put them in that position in the first place?
Well, you could have something to do, and I hope he ain't listening, but the person that runs Bognor might have something to do with that, Dave, where his position is at the FA. just saying.
All teams on the M3 and below, and that levelled line going across, were in the Southern League. It would make a huge difference to those clubs down there, because they know they're going one way or the other. They're not, okay, if you're going to be playing at Plymouth, well, you've got the problem because you're that far away. Exeter have the problems, Torquay have got the problems, and everyone else down in that part of the world because it is so far away. But it would make us more central, and then you could centralise it a lot easier by going into a central division and then the north, and everything that goes with it.
I think they tried when they changed the east and south east. They put us nearly all together, whereas before, when that wasn't there, some of us were travelling over to Wroxham and that from the north, Dave. If you remember, when obviously the VCDs or the Phoenixes and Thamesmead had to travel across. It is just like I said. I will say they are trying. I can't knock them for that, but there's always going to be what about us? And the only one I could see, like I said, you could look at them three clubs in the Prem and say, why aren't they in it? You can look at Chichester, you can look at maybe Whitehall, why aren't they in the other leagues? But it's not too far off.
I agree. Gents, I'm really, really sorry, but I've got to shoot.
No worries, mate. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Good luck with the 23s tonight. You've got Phoenix, haven't you?
Season.
Yeah, well, should be all right. Hopefully, all right. We should, if we win, we'll top the 23s league, top of the Hishman South East. Hopefully, it ends.
Yeah, still that, Bill. Time to go, mate.
I wish you all the best for the rest of the season, mate. If I don't see you,
all the best,
thanks,
mate.
Take care.
I'll come on next season, lads.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a Premier.
No worries.
Okay.
Yeah,
mate.
Take care.
But I mean, do you see anything?
I've never liked him, Dave.
But do you see anything changing pitch-wise and league-wise? I mean, going into next year, I mean, do you see coming in driver?
I can't see them changing unless they move grounds into it. But then Wimbledon, they move ground and they've moved to a floodplain, and they're in the games called off on their pitch. They're being waterlogged because it's a 4 foot or 6 foot below the local rivers level. So,
didn't the Southern League try to do something because of this, Dave? Because obviously a lot of their teams are in the sort of flood zone, that either they played their games early or left a load of fixtures after Christmas late because of that, so they could do that. Was that right, Peter? Saying
no, I've never had anything like that at all. No. We have requested that we don't travel. We've asked them if we don't travel to the south coast or Devon or Cornwall or Somerset during the month of August and early September because of holidays. So what do we get? Our first two away fixtures: Tiverton away and Gosport Borough away. Traffic carnage. It took us 6 hours to get to Tiverton. M5 was blocked around Bristol. The A30 was blocked along the road there. Just thinking, no matter which direction you came from, it was crazy. Leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we didn't get there till in time. It was just awful. So, unless it's the FA, you've got to say, right, why don't they play as a local league down there? And as soon as the second week of September over, we can get down there. We can go and see them because the travel will be a lot easier. But,
yeah, it makes sense. But can I ask you a
common
question?
sense.
Pete, can I ask you a question? Is there anything about the Southern League or FA you like?
I love the Southern. I think they're competitive. It's really competitive, and there's some great teams in it. There's some great people. There's some really great people in it. You're always going to get Billy Big Boots that are going around thinking they're better than anybody else and everything. But it's a great competitive league, and we enjoy playing in it. It's far more competitive than the Southern Midlands, the Midlands League. Far more competitive than that. She's got a team.
Yeah, you've got some big clubs in it, though, haven't you? You've got some seriously big clubs in your league.
And they're paying some big money out. Don't care what anyone says. We all know, because managers talk to one another and players talk to one another and what they're on and everything. You're thinking, what? How can you have someone that was playing in the Football League and with Dagenham and Redbridge leave them, and he was full time at Dagenham and Redbridge, and go and play for Farnborough? You can't tell me he ain't going for any much less than what he was at Dagenham and Redbridge on.
Unless he had a pet cat.
Yeah, quite. It's just there's some silly money being thrown around, and COVID has distorted everything this year. Without a shadow of a doubt.
No, that was my big eye opener. I said this, and I talked to my chairman and that about it as well. When they go, look, go and get that and that. You set your budget at the beginning when I took over, and you thought, yeah, listen, that's okay. You know, it is what it is. And then you find out what other clubs are offering people, or they're getting paid, and it is a shock. But listen, that is it. That is what we've had with COVID, and hopefully it will settle down within the next year or so. But
without a shadow of a doubt, next year there'll be no money.
It's something that's gone on forever, though. I've got to say, I know people keep going, oh, it's just worse every year, but it's just that money's more what you say, inflation. Where your 50 quid years and years ago was really expensive when people are getting a fiver. Now, like your 400 or 500 quids are really expensive when they're getting 100 quid, and it is what it is at the end of the day. I wish
it was only 400 or 500 quid being paid out to players in our league. I can assure you, I wish it was only that. It's some crazy money. Listening. There's some silly money. You're talking near that. When you go to tax, national insurance, pension contributions, you're talking £1,000 a week.
Wow.
Which is bloody stupid money.
So Peter, is it vital then for Chesham to get promoted this year?
No, it'd be good if we got promoted, but we had a bad start to the year because we wouldn't pay the inflated wages out. All these players went to these clubs on these inflated wages, and all of a sudden they stopped getting games, and they come to us, and we've had a brilliant second half of the year. Undefeated. We've had 2 defeats in 17, 18 games. It's been incredible. Where we've turned it around from putting a bunch of kids out, and they're 18 and 19-year-olds at the beginning of the season, to now to a team with players in their 25s to 30s, and it make a huge difference. And they're good players, and they're playing well. And they've got a fabulous team spirit. But it's the new ground we're aiming at, and we know when we get to the new ground, now that we're advancing very quickly towards it, that it will make a huge difference to the club. And yes, we won't be in the Southern League. We'll be in National League South, and you never know what happens from there, do you?
So I mean, is that? I mean, how long is the new ground away?
We've had a PPA with the council. We had a brilliant meeting with the council. They've said what they want as extras and everything like that, what they want from us. And there's another PPA going in the next 2 weeks with answering all their questions and queries. They didn't moan about what was happening on our site. We've solved a big problem on our site this week, a huge, massive problem that would hold it back, and we've resolved that this week, which is brilliant news. And where we're going to, they're saying fantastic, absolutely brilliant, no problems at all. So it's all systems go for us, and it's going to be completely community orientated. It's going to get the community of the town into the club, like we're into the town at the moment, but it's going to be massive. Do
you own your ground, Peter?
No, it's owned. Well, we've got a long-term lease. It's owned by a company called Chesham Sports Limited. It was donated to them back in 1930. Where it's the deeds state quite categorically, it's for the physical recreation of men. And so there's cricket. There's a big cricket ground there on 5 acres. There's our football pitch, which has got 5.3 acres. There's a gym there as well. We're relocating away, so they're allowing us to sell that land to the builders, and that money from that land will be invested totally into the new stadium, new facilities. We've got the land we're going to. We've agreed the price and everything. There's meetings happening next week, which will really push the club even farther along the path. So it's very exciting times, and get the planning application in, because when we put the planning application in, we're going to get NIMBYs, always will do, and always that's going to be no thing. But the local plan, the local people, a local organisation, they're all fully in support of it. There's going to be people that will object. There always is, no matter where you go, anything. But the council are very supportive of us, and we're looking forward to giving the community a proper facility where they can actually play football instead of playing on council pitches. All these kids, our academy trains on a council pitch, right? And they went training 2 weeks ago, and they put all the cones out, and neighbours came out with their dogs. The dogs ran over it, picked the cones up, ran off with them, and then they started peeing up against the training poles.
Well, they weren't training; they were doing doggies.
Yeah, quite. And then when they walked across the pitch, there's dog poo all over the place. I'm thinking, this is not hygienic. This is totally unacceptable. And the council fully understand that. And having fence pitches and everything with no dogs in the grounds and everything will be a safe environment for everyone. And it'll be centralised. And they'll be able to use the facilities for tea, coffees, and there'll be a gym on site and everything that goes with it. Very exciting what we've got planning for. So
sounds really good.
It's going to be totally different. It's totally different, and it is going to be designed as a proper football stadium, not with a concrete path around it and one big stand. There are going to be terraces. But I'm sick and tired of going to modern grounds with a concrete bath around it and it passes ground grading. That's pathetic. That's not football as it should be.
But you've got some big games coming up as well. I mean,
We've got some great games coming up. Yeah, looking forward to them.
Met Police, Taunton, Paul, Warren Casuals, and then you might get to see Mr. Hughes as well, because he's after that it's Merthyr Tydfil.
Oh, looking forward to Merthyr Tydfil. That's always I'm really sad about Merthyr, the position they're in, because it's one of the great fixtures. Their lads come up and they're great lads, and when we go down there, their hospitality is fabulous. It's a great footballing club. And I'm really sorry they're in that situation. And I hope Mr. Hughes does recover fully from his problems, because he is a genuine man that really loves his football and puts a lot into it. So, yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's a season of fun.
I spoke to him yesterday, day before. Yeah. He says he's getting there. So fingers crossed that he carries on getting there as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope he doesn't take on too much next season by trying to become chairman of the league when he's just getting over what he's had. I really want him to step back into life and slowly put commitment into it, rather than jumping and taking on the chairman's job, because everyone knows the chairman's job is either the most loved or the most hated person. There's no right.
Well, one of the things I should say from is as well in the programme as well, because it happened on Saturday, and I know Keith knows the gentleman that I'm about to talk about, and he just happened to do it when I weren't at the Poxy game, which I'm a bit annoyed about, but there we go. What can you do? And of course, that's the machine, Alex Reading. Massive congratulations to him, of course, breaking the long-term Harlow scoring record at the weekend. He's now on 199, so fingers crossed I might get there at the weekend and see him knock 200. But
always good to see records.
Yeah, a massive achievement for him to get to actually to get.
Dave, I've nearly signed Alex about 4 times over his career. Lovely fella, just couldn't afford him really. But he was, he's a really top lad, and if anyone deserves it, it's him. He's a proper goal scorer. Not many like him around anymore, sort of old school. And
and one club players.
You get it.
He's not chasing the money. He's loyal.
Yeah, he's had a few, but he's
don't know him very well.
Honestly, but he's gone back to where he is.
In all fairness, I weren't at the game because I was on holiday, but I wasn't expecting him to score 5 goals against Wantage at the weekend, and he ended up knocking in 5 goals, which got him the record. So. But there you go.
Good luck to him. It's nice to see people having records and record performances and attendances and everything like that. It's what football's about. It's about making records and being recognised for it all.
Yeah.
And, it's the way football is. But we're having fun. We've got a great managerial duo at the club. They're absolutely brilliant, and they won't pay players more than what they think they're worth, which is brilliant from them. And they pick up really good players, and the way they talk to them, it's so interesting to go to training on a Thursday night, and then because we train artificially away from the ground on an artificial pitch, and you go to their upper 6 and they go through for the first half hour, they're going through the match on Saturday, what was right, what was wrong, this is where you got to learn from the cameras that we have, and they just send them to the players and saying, why were you doing this, or look, you did this well, and it's really informative. It really is informative. You're thinking they're nearly pros, the way they're behaving, analysing games and analysing performances and stuff. So it's lovely to see that side. It's hard work being a chairman, but fun. Don't tell me I wouldn't do it if I wasn't enjoying it.
Well, I mean, I suppose the other thing, Keith, I suppose one thing we should mention, of course, is and it just reminds me seeing the shirt in your background there, and I suppose
Mr. Ukraine.
Yeah, everybody's talking at the moment.
Yeah. If you was here now,
Bob, it?
I got a flagpole in my garden with the Ukraine flag up on it, because.
Listen, it just puts things into perspective.
Dave,
It's, I've got it on my TV nearly all day. I sit over in the office and watch it, and ridiculous, isn't it? It just sometimes think how lucky you are and what country we live in, and but how close it is away. But you wish everyone all the best there, and
and I think
hopefully that someone can start calling some common sense. I'm pretty happy to go over and mediate for the peace talks. I reckon I can get that sorted.
It'd be good to see, but it's nice to see that football has actually got his acting together and banned Russia and Belarus from football internationals forever. IOC from Olympics, they're not doing anything that, and the other organisations are beginning to follow. So they need to be ostracised away from the sporting thing and go back behind their iron curtain and see what the people say. Because the only way to do it is to hit them the way they are.
In all fairness, not to go too political, I suppose you feel sorry for quite a lot of those Russian people that don't want it either.
Exactly.
And they're having to suffer maybe not by playing football and being at Olympics and stuff like this, and they're not interested in the war either. But it's a big shame. But time has run away from us, and but next week joining me and Keith hopefully will be the manager of the aforementioned Worthing in Adam Hinselwood will come and join us next week and on his sort of run to the National League.
Just before we go, I've just got to do a quick mention to someone, because obviously there's a couple of people watching and they're mostly small at the moment, from which the board do a lot of work at the club, which is obviously Gary Carter and his wife, Mandy. It's her 50th birthday on Saturday. So I want to wish her happy birthday. She's mostly throwing things at the telly at the moment because she's 40, really. But I just thought I'll give her husband a bit of a giggle. So happy birthday for the weekend, and hopefully we can and the boys can try and get you some points so we can have a fun drink for once at the Saturday, more than a drink that drown your sorrow. So happy birthday.
I think with that last comment, there's a visit to the local florist for you to be due as well.
She's allergic.
But listen, thank you everybody for watching. Me and Keith will be back next week, as say, hopefully with Mr. Hinselwood as well. And until then, and thank you as well, Peter, for joining us tonight as well. Been much appreciated.
It's good listening to you. It's good listening to your podcast most of the week. So
hope for us then.
All the very best to you.
Yeah, but of course, don't forget there is awards out there as I've posted. Please give us a vote. We've been doing this for 10 years now, so give us a vote, and hopefully we might pick something up as well.
Can't believe you ain't got anything, Dave. I thought, what is it? We must be. I think we're one of the most biggest watch shows. You don't get anything.
We just carry on. But until next week, everyone. See you later.
Grassroots football at its best, you are, lads. Well done. Take care.